Ekujoko, I know that won't be a response. This is a greeting from Yoruba, and it literally means well done for sitting. Well, actually, this actually will set the tone of my presentation. When you see the word, you don't know what it means. To you, it doesn't mean anything. But to me, it's a great courtesy that I must give to the audience. So that means there must be the respect between myself as a speaker and also the audience. And that is the direction of my talk today. Of course, I am a performance artist. I'm also accidental curator. By accidental, it means that I evolved into the practice of creating, because there was the need for that gap, because there was a gap, at that time when the practice was being evolving, and that is the practice of being a performer, of course. Ishmael mentioned Okwe Nwuso is a very popular curator, but it's in diaspora. In Africa, we don't have a big curator like him who were living in the continent. So unfortunate. And so for some of us who are into performance, there was this great need for somebody to stand as mediator between the audience and the practice, and also the artist. But I will before I go into the presentation, I think it's necessary for you to understand who I am and where am I coming from, how did I get into being an accidental curator. I will screen a video for you, and that will give you the background. It's a documentary, television documentary of This is a documentary of my performance during Live Arts Festival in Lagos in 2012. I'm a performance artist, as you are aware, and most of the things that I do is involve the body, which means that the presence of the artist, the presence of the body of the artist, it is the medium. Unlike sculpture, painting, that the artist is the external body. But now the artist is an integral part of the artwork, and that's what makes it a performance, and that's what makes it a live art. So what you just saw me doing was just performing, doing, using visual images. You see me painting my body. The body that the color that I put on my body is yellow, and that shows that I am bringing you down into the spiritual realm. And in the spiritual realm, it's only for you to know that I am talking about things that make you to grow. And that is about, you are aware, all of us are aware about when people talk about God, the existence of God. And the performance is talking about that. It is titled Porodongo, which is in the Yoruba word means something that is completeness. I am talking about the cannibalistic nature of human beings. Humans are cannibalistic in nature. We kill animals. We eat the flesh of animals for our own existence. And this attitude, we have created it and wear it into God. We have made God to appear as a being cannibalistic also. And so that's what the whole performance is all about. And you can see it has an installation of bones, cow bones specifically, and it is about creation, some reality about our religion aspect, which is also part of our being cannibalistic. We kill animals, we make sacrifice, we use animals as sacrifice, and these are the things that we need to ask. Why must God love them? Is it actually the God that wants love, or is it because we are cannibalistic? And that is exactly what I'm trying to say here. The bones that I went to dig around, and these bones I want them from my avatar. And you can imagine how many animals, how many cows that have gone into this. That's exactly what I'm just trying to say.
Porogondo reveals the historical contents of human history and the attempt to show memorials of sacrifice, pain, suffering, and callousness.
I started in 2004, and I've done so many performances. But this one is a project which I started last year, but I titled it Feast, and this is supposed to be the fourth enactment of it. The third one I had to postpone it because recently I was attacked. I was attacked. I was bleeding up to death once, and so I have to postpone that. I'm saying, I'm just trying to let you see the absurdity in it. And you could see when I was in a section where I was cutting the bones and I was offering it to people for them to actually see. It is for them to just actually think, could I collect this bone, or could I just, what am I going to do with the bone? I'm just trying to see, to ridicule the circumstance, to ridicule the story, to ridicule the rationale behind it. It is stupid.
My name is Saratu, and I have no idea what this is. I've just been given a piece of bone. I don't know. I really don't understand it. And it's very scary. It's cow bone, I think.
Is this like an African traditional cultural display or what?
I have no idea. It's quite scary. I know him handing this to me is almost like an offering of some sort, but it's just bone. I don't know. I have no idea. It's not part of my culture, so do you have any idea?
I'm clueless. I think the guy represents some kind of animal. If not, why is there the sound in the background? I think he represents some kind of animal. And I don't know. I think the animal is
No, I think it's a cow. A cow that is about to be slaughtered.
Oh, look at trying to get all these vegetarians. I feel like the effects of what we're doing to the cow.
Makes sense.
How does it make sense?
Well, I can hear the pain in the cow's voice, or the sound of pain. So it makes you think that if you're slaughtering animals for your own consumption, maybe think a little bit about their feelings.
In Porogondo, bones stand as a metaphorical statement of destruction and degeneration.
Please forgive me if the video is so long. I actually want you to feel the background, the context which I'm going to be speaking about. Performance actually was part of an integral part of African culture. As a matter of fact, it was only most predominant art forms in Africa. But the advent of colonialism put a stop into it, and people tend to get away completely from it. And so the appreciation of it now becomes very difficult. And that's why you could feel the response of the audience towards some of these performance. So I was born in 1968 in the post-colonial era, and where the continent itself is struggling with this effect of post-colonialism, the issue of corruption, the issue of poverty, and it threw the continent into the state of emergency, where, for example, as an artist, the institutions are not there. There is no theater for stage, good theater for theater production. There is no good museum. There is no good art exhibition. And the only thing that you have is the society, is the public space. And so this actually influenced most of the things that I do. But essentially in 2011, I attended two important festivals. One was a traditional festival, which I will show a video of it, and the second one was a Mies Contemporary Festival that is mostly musical, but also have a traditional form embedded into it. These two events are relevant because it was after this event, this festival, that I had to think deeply about the possibility of re-present performance in Africa, especially in Nigeria, where I am based. And so that made me to now think of creating a platform. I want to use the word, borrow the word from Ishmael. A platform in the sense that it gives us the opportunity to come together as an artist and also to present our work, in the way that it could understandable, And because when you look at me, for example, I am neither a Nigerian, nor American, nor British. I am all, because I was born as a Yoruba, for example, but I was trained as a Westerner, and my interaction in society is somehow being colonized by the American system. And so, in a way, I become an hybrid person. But in 1992, I decided to have a kind of a process that I call decolonization process, my personal decolonization. And that means that I was consciously attempt to go inwardly and within my culture and borrow heavily from the ancient or from the past or from the culture. And that actually sets the philosophy of the organization that I established in 2011, which is called Afri Performer. And it's like kind of a group or a kind of a collective of African performance artists, and also who are also serving as performance artists and also curator. And we tend to design a series of programs. And the first was a biennale, and which is a rotational. And the biennale is rotational in the sense that it is not stationed in a particular country. We moved from one country to another. Like the first one with the maiden one was done in 2013 in Zimbabwe, which I'm going to talk about that later. But let me show you this video again. This was a Sika festival in the Republic of Benin. And the performance you're about to watch is called the Gelede dance. The Galadan dance is actually an ancient ritual dance, and putting it in this context is completely out of the main content itself, and which means that it's being represented in an aesthetic form. But to me, it's strange because bringing Galadan dance into a stage like this, and you could feel that it's completely out of context, like I said. Well, it give me, just like I said earlier, the moment of thinking, rethinking this process, and rethinking the presentation of the ancient form in the modern way. Performance in Africa, in ancient Africa, is an integration of all forms of art, dance, music, visual, and it's also spoken poetry. Forgive the quality of the video, and I just used my small camera there. I think she's trying to usher in the Gelede dancer, which is more like a masquerade. But sometimes I hate using the word masquerade because the forms which it produces go beyond masquerading. Notice the colorful costumes. actually it's been determined by the rhythm of the drums, and the dancers follow exactly what the drummers are saying. Another festival, and in this festival, I encountered a group of young youths in the public space, and this little boy was actually dancing, and you can see the drummers following him, and they were going in the streets from one street to another, and moving, and there was a lot of crowd behind them, and they were making. Actually, the festival was just like is for the people, and the people are also part of it. It's so important to us because when you look at, of course, Africa is so big to be put into a small context, and a small context of a geography or way of life. But one thing that is central is the fact that in most of the African countries, most of our festivals take place in the open space and in public space. And these were to follow this idea. How do we create festival that is how this characteristic of African culture? How do we bring it in? And we now, in Afri Performer, we now want to create by inviting artists all over the world to come and work with this contest, and creating the work or presenting their work in a way that fits into the context in Africa. And so sorry, I have to stop that. So this is some of the works that I produced then that not necessarily talk about that. Yeah, the Afri Performer, like I said, was established in 2011, and it was to give us the opportunity to present performance, of course, visual performance, not really theater, but also to have the characteristic of the African culture embedded in it. And so we designed two programs, two distinctive programs. And the first is Biennale, and the second is residency. You know, in the Biennale, like I said, it is rotational. And the first one was held in Harare, Zimbabwe, from November 8 to 22. And that was where the problem was, who the artists were supposed to be, who I'm going to select them. And of course, like I said, I'm an accidental curator. I just have to be spontaneous in my thinking, and I just have to feel like we don't have fund. Funding in Africa is zero. There is no corporate funding, no government funding, and so you just have to rely on yourself solely as an artist. And so, well, the first thing that we do was to look at some artists that I've met, because I've traveled so wide. Some of them that could actually have access to funding, and then I start asking questions. If I invite you to this Biennale, can you get funding? And a couple of artists came up, and I said, yeah, good. And we started making lists of the artists. And then the African artists also, I have to ask them if they can personally sponsor themselves into this made in Biennale. And some of them agree, and some of them say, well, let's look if it's going to work. But that became a big problem, because at the end, towards when the Biennale was approaching, maybe a month or two, and some of them have to opt out and said they couldn't have sourced the fund. But some able to make it and also got there. And in the Biennale was divided into 4 segments. We have the live performance, we have a photo exhibition, we have a video and film screening, and of course, the photo and the film screening are actually performance-influenced photographs, or photographs of performance documentation. Then the video are actually also video documentation of performance, or performance-influenced video or film. We have artists from Egypt, we have artists from Cameroon, we have from Kenya, we have also from Germany, we also have from US in each of this section. That is these are the posters. The only person that actually did a dance in the Biennale is from Mozambique, and it's Daniel. And this is artist from Kenya. Yeah, there's artists from America. Yeah. And one thing about when there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of crisis during the performance. One, there was the issue of visa. A lot of people were refused visa because Zimbabwe is more like a controlled society, and they were afraid that it's going to be the first time a festival like that, live performance festival like that is going to take place. Of course, they have IFA, they also have a protest art festival, but they were not used to a collective festival from Africa and for being organized by a Nigerian and curated by Nigeria. So they feel that perhaps we're going to talk about the political situation there and stuff like that. So there was not approval for us to present the performance in a public space as we usually, and that set us into another crisis. Where do we make the performances? So at that, I have to talk with some organizations like Goethe Institute, and they come in, like a kind of intervention, and they give us their space, and we have to use some spaces, like a rooftop, like hidden space where we will not be seen, and we quickly have to do what we want to do the documentation, and we go. And one funny thing is, I was also refused visa. I wasn't able to go. But I had an assistant who is from Denmark, from Copenhagen, so she was able to go, and she had a visa free. And this is one of the characteristics of Africa. The mobility is restricted. For example, I can't go to Kenya. I can't go to Egypt without visa, and so you have to go through a lot of processes to get visa, and that is one of the problems that we actually condone with in this festival. This is from artist from Dominican Republic. Yeah, the residency, we design it in a way that we bring artists outside Africa to come and experience the society, the Africa itself, because there's a lot of misconception, there's a lot of stereotype about what Africa is. And so I feel like you must understand the society, you must understand the people, you must be able to feel the value of the people when you are presenting the work to them. And so occasionally I will try to invite, Dimpe, she's an Indian artist who was invited but couldn't make it to the first, the made in Benali, but she was brought into Lagos to live for 2 months, and she produced series of works, and this is one of the works she did. And this is the recent one. We usually have 2 artists at the same time. We pair them together to work, and from these 2 different countries. During the time of Dimpe, we had an artist from London who is also a lecturer, and so they worked together differently, but they were living in the same space. And of course, because we don't have funding, like I said, we have zero funding, but what we do is to talk to individuals who can, for example, give us space, like accommodation. And in this, during their own residency, there is Prince Shilon, who is like a individual donor to art. He gave us a flat, and we're accommodated, and we got a funding for her from Prince Claus. That's a flight ticket, and of course she took care of herself. The other things she provided herself. And in this residency, we brought artists from Frankfurt and an artist from Stockholm, and they work in the theme of the materiality, like Ismail said, the materiality of the body, and they also brought commercial posters, big banners from Europe, and used as their costumes, and of course enact most of their performances in the public space. And to them, it was a different experience, because when you could see the crowd was so, when they started the performance, there was a lot of tick. The crowd was just too much, and sometimes they have to change the direction of their walk, and they have to be spontaneous in what they do, and that's exactly what the performance in Africa, in Asian Africa, is. The people sometimes determine how you move, what you do, because they tend to come into the performance themselves, and they tend to become part of it. And there's also part of it. And now in our future Biennial, which is going to take place from November 13 to 27, in Lagos. We choose Lagos because Lagos is the most populous city in Africa. We're about 40 million people living there. It's crazy. It has kind of energy. I think Ismail can testify to that when he was there. It's a society where you cannot place. You can say this is where Lagos belongs to. It is very difficult. It has both the rich, the poor, and also the capitalists, the socialists. It's this different kind of people living there. To me, it's like a chaotic environment. And so bringing artists all over the world to come and be in Lagos for 2 weeks and do their performance to us, to me, as a curator, is something that I think is fascinating. And in this Biennale, we choose, make our Biennale to be like thematical, and it is by invitation alone. Just, we don't want to have a call for participation, because we want people who really understand the society, who understand Africa, who does not have a stereotype idea about Africa. And in this Biennale, what I also do in most of the Biennale, as I am just standing as like a manager, I have sometimes select some other curators that will create the other segments. But of course, each of the curators must have a strong contact with Africa for them to understand the kind of artists that we will bring. But in this Biennale, in the Biennale 2, we have both curators that are not residents, that are not African, and then we have curators that are African, that are actually based in Africa. So in the live performance, we have Cavio Machalio, and who is a Portuguese but live in Berlin and has been in Africa for several times, and we have done a lot of projects together. And to me, I think is the best person who could look at and select and suggest some artists. And what we do in this respect for him was to select about 50 artists and send the names to me and give me the link to their work, and which I look at their work, and I trying to have an independent view, not as a curator, but to put myself aside, but that should be as a kind of an African audience, that if this artist is invited, what will be the reaction of the audience, and how will the audience accept, or what will be. And at the end, we were able to select 20 artists with a ratio of 7 from Africa, 5 from Europe, 4 from America, 3 from Asia, and 1 from Australia. And so in this ratio, we're able to feel that it is the world coming, and the world. But of course, we are not just bringing them. There will be a dialogue between the artists and the local. So for these 20 artists, we have 20 Lagosians, that is those who live in Lagos, and we pair them together. And in pairing them together, there will be kind of a discussion, and the artists will be able to ask a lot of discussion. And in the discussion, through the process of discussion, we believe that the artists will be able to produce and be able to have idea of how the direction of the work will be. And of course, all the performances will be in the public space. And in the public space, it's not going to be in a garden, but it's going to be in like Bariga, where you are. And Bariga is a local society where we have most of the poor people living, and the poor tend to, they have fantastic audience when you compare to the elites. They are inquisitive, they ask a lot of questions. So because of that, we chose about 20 locations for each of the artists, and which would have used the entire city for that. So thank you so much.